Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into a concept that's been around for centuries. It's hypocrisy.
Mm.
And to really, kind of get to the bottom of this idea, we're going to be looking at it from the perspective of Sahih Muslim, specifically Book 38. It's called The Characteristics of the Hypocrites and Command Concerning Them.
Right.
And, at first glance, someone might think, okay, hypocrisy, yeah, it's just saying one thing and then going and doing another. But as we're going to find out, it's a lot deeper than that.
Absolutely.
It's like this misalignment inside a person. Like their beliefs and their actions just don't match up.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I mean, the Arabic word for hypocrisy is nifaq.
Okay.
And it goes way beyond just like, trying to impress people. It's like a condition of the heart, a spiritual disease. And a person's intentions are totally different from how they act on the outside.
Wow. That's a powerful way to think about it. So we're not talking about just like, messing up every now and then.
Yeah.
This is more like a consistent pattern where someone's actions, they always contradict what they say they believe.
Yeah.
But where we even start trying to unpack something this, complicated?
Well, the hadiths, the sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, they give us incredible insights into hypocrisy.
Right.
We've got stories, examples, and warnings that can help us understand this idea in a much deeper level. For example, there's this really interesting story about a man named Abdullah ibn Ubay. He was a prominent figure in Medina.
Oh, yeah.
Outwardly professed Islam, but, based on the hadiths, he had these hypocritical tendencies.
Abdullah ibn Ubay. His name comes up a lot when you're talking about hypocrisy in Islamic history.
Yeah.
What is it about his story that's so important?
Well, his story shows this clash between what you see on the surface and what's really going on inside. He was this leader who had influence in the Muslim community, but his actions, they often went against what he said. One story that really stands out is when the Prophet Muhammad and his followers were about to go on this difficult journey, Abdullah ibn Ubay, he actually tried to discourage his own people from supporting the Prophet.
Wow, so he was undermining the very community that he said he was a part of.
Exactly. And this is where things get even more interesting. There was this companion, Zayd bin Arqam, who saw what was happening and told the Prophet. At first, Abdullah denied it.
Oh, wow.
But then there was divine intervention. Verses were revealed in the Quran confirming Zayd's account and exposing those hypocrites.
Hold on. So the Quran, the holy book of Islam, it directly addresses this whole thing. That's pretty big, right?
Absolutely. It shows just how seriously God takes hypocrisy. These verses, they weren't just recording history. They were a divine message meant to expose hypocrisy and warn people about it. Actually, one of those verses related to this event, it says, "You did not conceal yourselves, lest your ears, your eyes, and your skins would stand witness against you." And that's from Quran 41.22.
It's like this cosmic reminder that no matter what, we can't hide our true intentions from God, even if we fool everyone around us.
Yeah.
But here's what I find really interesting. The Prophet Muhammad's response to Abdullah ibn Ubay's hypocrisy, even after all of that, when Abdullah died, the Prophet offered the funeral prayer for him. And that caused a lot of his companions to be like, wait, what? Because they couldn't understand why he would do that.
Yeah, Hadith 6678 to 6681 talk about that. It's an amazing example of the Prophet's incredible compassion. Even when he was betrayed and lied to, he responded with mercy and forgiveness.
Right.
It really challenges us to think about how we deal with hypocrisy in our own lives. Do we judge and condemn right away, or do we try to understand and offer a way back?
It's a really profound lesson, especially in our world today where it feels like judging and getting angry is the automatic response. So we've seen hypocrisy in actions and words, but the hadiths, they also dive into those thoughts and doubts that can reveal hypocrisy inside someone.
Yeah.
There's this story about three men having a private conversation where they're actually questioning if God can hear them.
Oh, yeah. Hadith 6682 talks about that. It's a really clear case of hypocrisy because it shows a lack of genuine belief in God's knowledge. They doubted that he knew what they were saying in private, which means their faith was only surface level.
Right. It's like believing only when it's easy, which isn't really belief at all, is it? And the Quranic verse that came down in response to their doubts, it's interesting.
Yeah.
You did not conceal yourselves, lest your ears, your eyes, and your skins would stand witness against you. From Quran 41.22.
Yeah.
It really drives home that God is aware of everything, even our most private thoughts and intentions. Nothing's hidden from him.
Yeah.
And knowing that should push us to be sincere in everything we do, because we'll be held accountable for both our actions and our thoughts. It's a powerful concept, the idea that we're always being watched, not in like, a creepy way, but in a way that motivates us to be our best selves. It reminds us that true piety, it's not about putting on a show for everyone else. It's about making sure our inside and outside match up, our thoughts and our actions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Abdullah ibn Ubay and those three men questioning God, those are just two examples of how hypocrisy shows up. But there's so many other signs and traits of this spiritual disease that we need to explore further.
Yeah, for sure. The Hadiths give us a ton of examples that help us understand the nature of hypocrisy and how it affects both individuals and communities.
Well, I'm really interested to hear more about these examples.
Right.
Let's continue this conversation and see what other insights the Hadiths offer.
I'm ready when you are. Let's jump back in.
Welcome back to our deep dive into hypocrisy, or as we know it in Arabic, nifaq.
We're using the wisdom of Sahih Muslim, Book 38, to explore this, complex human flaw.
It's amazing how these ancient texts have so much to say about human nature, stuff that's still relevant today.
In the last part, we talked about Abdullah ibn Ubay, who said he was a Muslim, but his actions didn't match up. And then there were those three guys who doubted if God could even hear them,
Yeah.
which is a pretty clear sign of hypocrisy. These stories really show how hypocrisy can be a lot sneakier and more widespread than we might think.
Exactly. It's not always about big lies or, putting on a huge show. Sometimes it shows up in the little things we do every day, those inconsistencies between what we believe, what we say, and what we actually do. For instance, the Hadiths describe hypocrites as those who are always making promises they don't keep.
All right.
Like they'll agree to help someone but then back out at the last minute because it's inconvenient for them.
Right.
This kind of thing, it destroys trust and makes people doubt each other.
It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words. Making a promise is one thing, but it's following through that really matters.
Exactly.
If someone's actions always contradict their words, it sends a clear message that they're not reliable.
For sure. And speaking of trust, betraying trust is another big sign of hypocrisy that comes up in the Hadiths.
How so?
Well, it could be things like revealing secrets, misusing someone's belongings, or even just breaking a promise.
Yeah.
It's about violating that bond of trust that holds relationships and communities together.
Betrayal really hurts, and it can be hard to get over. It makes you wonder about the broader impact of hypocrisy. If someone's okay with betraying one person, what's to stop them from doing it to others?
Yeah, it creates this environment of suspicion where people are afraid to trust or rely on anyone.
Right, exactly.
Hypocrisy doesn't just affect the individual, it can damage relationships and weaken society as a whole. Another trait the Hadiths associate with hypocrisy is spreading rumors and causing trouble within a community.
Oh, yeah.
Hypocrites might gossip, talk behind people's backs, or just try to make others look bad to make themselves look better.
It's like they feed off of negativity and drama.
Right.
Instead of lifting people up, they try to bring them down. And this kind of behavior, it can be really harmful, especially these days with social media and how fast rumors can spread online. It's so easy to ruin someone's reputation anonymously with just a few clicks.
And that's why it's so important now more than ever to be careful about what we see and share online.
Absolutely.
We need to be critical of the information we come across. Question sources, check facts, and don't spread rumors or attack people's character online.
Right. The Hadiths remind us that our words are powerful,
Yeah.
and we should use them to bring people together, not tear them apart.
It's a powerful reminder in a world that often feels so divided.
It is. We need to resist getting caught up in negativity and focus on promoting understanding and unity instead.
For sure.
But, it's one thing to spot hypocrisy in others, but facing our own hypocrisy, that's a whole different challenge.
You're absolutely right. One of the biggest lessons we can learn from the Hadiths is the importance of looking inward and examining ourselves. We have to be willing to look in the mirror and ask ourselves some tough questions. Do our actions match our beliefs? Are we living by the values we say we have? Are we contributing to our community or causing problems?
Those are questions that can make you feel pretty uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to judge other people, but much harder to turn that judgment on ourselves.
Yeah, but it's in that discomfort, that honest self-reflection, where we can actually start to improve. The Hadith emphasize aligning our intentions with our actions. It's not enough to just go through the motions of religious rituals or follow social norms. We have to mean it. Our hearts need to be in it.
Yeah.
We need to be motivated by a genuine desire to please God and live a life of integrity.
That's what true piety is all about, right?
Yeah.
It's not about how things look or what people think. It's about that internal harmony between our beliefs, our words, and our
You
actions.
got it. The Prophet Muhammad talked about this all the time. He said, actions are judged by intentions, and everyone will get what they intended.
Right.
This hadith shows how important intention is in Islam. It reminds us that our inner state, our motivations, are just as important as what we do outwardly.
It's like, it's not just what you do, but why you do it. Two people could do the same thing, but their intentions could be totally different, and that makes a huge difference to God.
Exactly. The hadiths encourage us to constantly check our intentions, purify our hearts, and make sure our actions are driven by sincere faith and love for God, not just wanting worldly things or recognition.
Thinking about all of this makes me reflect on my own life.
Yeah.
Thinking about where I might be falling short, where my actions maybe don't match my beliefs. It's humbling, to say the least.
That's the first step to growth and self-improvement, recognizing our own flaws. The hadiths remind us that we're all human, we all mess up.
Yeah.
The important thing is to be aware of our weaknesses and try to do better. Be honest with ourselves and with God, admit where we've gone wrong, and ask for His guidance to get back on track.
It's a continuous journey of self-improvement, and it sounds like we need all the help we can get. Speaking of help, do the hadiths offer any solutions or, like, antidotes to this disease of the heart?
Absolutely, they do. The hadiths recommend things like prayer, fasting, charity, remembering God, and seeking knowledge. These acts of worship and devotion, they help cleanse our hearts and strengthen our connection to God.
Right.
They nourish our souls and remind us of what's truly important.
So it's not just about avoiding bad things. It's about actively doing good things that help us grow spiritually and be more sincere.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from the superficial to what really matters, from the fleeting pleasures of this world to the eternal rewards of the hereafter. The hadiths emphasize that real happiness and contentment come from seeking God's pleasure, not chasing worldly desires or recognition. They remind us that this life is temporary, a test, and our ultimate goal is to earn God's favor and reach paradise in the afterlife.
That reminds me of a beautiful verse from the Quran. And whoever does righteous deeds, whether male or female, while being a believer, those will enter paradise and will not be wronged, even as much as the speck on a date seed. That's from Quran 4.124. It's a powerful message of hope and encouragement, reminding us that no matter what mistakes we've made, we can always try to live a good life and earn God's pleasure.
That verse really emphasizes that what matters most to God is righteousness and sincerity, not our status or possessions.
Right.
It's about purifying our intentions, aligning our actions with our beliefs, and striving to live a life that reflects the beauty and truth of our faith.
This deep dive into hypocrisy has been really eye-opening. I'm more aware of the dangers of hypocrisy, both in myself and in the world, and I feel even more motivated to be sincere and genuine in everything I do.
Remember, the journey towards a better, more fulfilling life starts with that first step. May these insights from Sahih Muslim inspire us all to be more mindful of our intentions, more sincere in our actions, and more compassionate toward ourselves and others.
This conversation has been truly enlightening, but I'm curious, what about those who choose to keep going down the path of hypocrisy? What does Islam say about what happens to them?
That's a big question, and one that we'll explore in our next segment. Join us as we delve into the consequences of hypocrisy and the rewards of sincerity as described in Sahih Muslim Book 38.
Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast, everyone. It's been quite a journey so far, exploring the concept of hypocrisy, nifaq as it's called in Arabic, through the teachings of Sahih Muslim Book 38.
Yeah, a real deep dive into the human heart, uncovering the subtle ways this hypocrisy can creep into our thoughts, our words, and our actions.
Exactly. We've learned hypocrisy is not just about lying or pretending. It's this spiritual disease that can affect our whole being, creating a gap between what we say we believe and how we actually live.
Right, and we've talked about the damage this disconnect can cause, not just to the person themselves, but to relationships, communities, and even society as a whole.
Absolutely. But now I think it's time to face the big question. What are the consequences of hypocrisy? What does Islam teach about what happens to those who hold on to this hypocrisy, allowing this spiritual disease to grow in their hearts?
That's a question a lot of people think about, and the hadiths, those sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, they don't shy away from addressing it. They actually give some pretty serious warnings about what awaits those who cling to hypocrisy.
So it's more than just social consequences or feeling guilty, right? We're
Yep.
talking about consequences that go beyond this life.
Exactly. The Hadiths talk about severe punishments in the hereafter, in the afterlife, for those who die with hypocrisy still in their hearts. We've mentioned some of these descriptions before, like the intense heat and spiritual torment.
Yes, those images are pretty intense. They paint this picture of a state of being that's just unbearable, a soul consumed by regret and isolation.
One really striking description is in Hadith 6695. The Prophet Muhammad compares hypocrites to two riders on a camel, turning their backs on the believers and facing the scorching heat on the Day of Judgment.
It's a powerful metaphor, isn't it? It's like they're on this journey with the believers, but they chose to look in the wrong direction, turning away from the light and towards darkness and suffering.
Yeah, and that unbearable heat, it symbolizes the spiritual pain and loneliness they'll experience.
Yeah.
Having lived this double life, their true nature will be exposed on that day in front of God and everyone. All that outward piety, all those declarations of faith, they won't mean anything because their hearts were never truly connected to God.
It's a sobering reminder that we can't fool God with outward appearances. Our intentions and actions matter, and they have eternal consequences.
Absolutely. The Hadiths also say that hypocrites will be furthest from God on the Day of Judgment, cast into the lowest parts of hell, which is described as a place of unimaginable suffering, eternal fire, where those who rejected God's guidance and lived against his will face the results of their choices.
It's a stark contrast to the descriptions of paradise, a realm of unimaginable beauty, peace, and joy.
Yeah, paradise is described as this garden of eternal delight, where rivers flow with milk and honey, and believers live in incredible mansions. They'll be with God, experiencing his love and mercy forever.
It's a vision that inspires and motivates us to work towards righteousness, knowing that our efforts to purify our hearts and live by God's will be rewarded beyond our wildest dreams.
Absolutely. But even with these warnings about hypocrisy, it's important to remember that God is also incredibly merciful and forgiving.
Yes, the Hadiths and the Quran always emphasize that God's mercy covers everything and that he's always ready to forgive those who sincerely turn back to him.
Yeah, even for those who've been hypocritical, the door to redemption isn't closed. God's mercy has no limits, and he loves to forgive those who truly seek his forgiveness.
So there's always hope for change, even if we've strayed from sincerity. But it takes acknowledging our mistakes, turning away from hypocrisy, and making a real effort to live according to God's will.
For sure. The Hadiths encourage us to constantly check our intentions, ask for God's guidance, and work towards being more genuine in our lives. They remind us that this life is a journey of spiritual growth, and every step we take towards sincerity brings us closer to God and further from the dangers of hypocrisy.
One hadith that really speaks to me about this is when the Prophet Muhammad said, "Whoever loves to meet Allah, Allah loves to meet him, and whoever hates to meet Allah, Allah hates to meet him."
That's a deep statement. It gets to the core of our relationship with God. It's not just about doing rituals or following rules because we're afraid or feel obligated. It's about developing a love and longing for God, knowing that true fulfillment comes from being with him.
It's realizing that the consequences of hypocrisy, both now and in the hereafter, come from a heart that's disconnected from God. And the rewards of sincerity, the eternal bliss of paradise, those are the result of a heart united with the divine.
This exploration of hypocrisy has been truly eye-opening. We've delved into the spiritual disease, its subtle forms, its consequences, and the solutions Islam provides.
But maybe the most important lesson is to cultivate sincerity in everything we do, to make sure our hearts match our actions, and to prioritize God's pleasure above everything else. It's a lifelong journey, a continuous effort to be more genuine and live with integrity.
And it's a journey we're not alone in. God's guidance, the Prophet Muhammad's teachings, and the support of our fellow believers, all of that helps light the way.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. May these insights inspire us all to live more authentically, with integrity, and with devotion to God.
May we all strive to be among those with pure hearts, sincere intentions, and actions that reflect the beauty of our faith.
And with that, we wrap up this deep dive into the echoes of Ihsan. Until next time, may peace and blessings be upon you all.